this is Professor Harvey, and I thought we could go through some rules for formatting and citing, in particular 10 rules. Now, there are far more rules, and there are greater specifics. Maybe others might prioritize one over another, but these are my 10 rules as a starting point in case perhaps you need a crash course, or maybe you need a reminder, or you just need additional resources to help you get used to formatting and citing your papers. I'm offering this from my perspective, not only as someone who has taught composition courses, but also someone who simply has graded theology and literature and history papers throughout the years and has noticed certain needs, certain things to begin with. When you're looking at all the rules, when you're looking at the handbooks and the websites, it can be a little intimidating. Where do I start? So my suggestion here is to begin with these 10 rules, and from there to go into even more specifics down the road as things progress in your academic studies and career. All right, now let's get started. Rule number 1. Writing assignments in the university should have a cover page, a bibliography page, and page numbers. But that page 1 begins not on the cover page, but on the first page of the content. I will also add that notice there's a bibliography page. We're going to be talking about footnotes. That means that the citation will happen both in the footnote with certain rules that apply to it and the bibliography. Just because something is cited in the paper doesn't mean you don't need a bibliography. The bibliography, think of it as the compilation of all the things that are found in your paper. It could be used in other ways too, but that's just one way to think of it. All right, rule 2. The bibliography page is organized by descending alphabetical order by the author's last name and with a hanging indent. Hanging indents do take a while to get used to, and you'll have certain things you'll need to work on for that, depending on if you're using Google Docs or Microsoft Word on your desktop, or maybe it's Apple's Pages. But I would just go into Google, specify which writing program you're using, and just say how to do a hanging indent in Word, and the instructions of what to do there will come up quite quickly. Rule number 3. You need to cite any ideas that come from your sources. There is often a misunderstanding that you only have to cite quotations when you quote your source. Yes, you do need to cite that, but that's not the only time. Anytime you pull from things, from lectures, from videos, from books, from articles, from magazines, anything, you need to give credit where credit is due. There is often a sense that there is the quotations and then you simply just talk about it. But there are other ways to appeal to your sources, and these are perhaps the more common two. There are summaries and paraphrases. There are others, but I would say quote, summary, paraphrase, those 3 will be the most common, and you cite. So even if you're putting a book, let's say you're reading something by Scott Hahn or Joseph Ratzinger or J.R.R. Tolkien, and you're summarizing in your own words something that they talked about, an idea that came from them, even though you're putting it in your own words, you still need to cite it. Moving on to rule number 4. Now, we use Turabian or Chicago Manual of Style, but for certain texts, we do allow for them to be cited parenthetically. So your citations will generally be footnotes in your writing assignments. But there, as I said, there are some sources that we cite parenthetically within our university community, like scripture and magisterial documents from councils like Vatican II, the Universal Catechism, also called the Catechism of the Catholic Church, or documents from a pope. By parenthetical citation, that means it goes in parentheses. You see an example of that here on the page. Verbum Domini is a document by Pope Benedict XVI, a wonderful document, and you see how it's cited there. Right? That's how it would look inside the paragraph. You also have the beginning of John's Gospel. Like I said, everything else will normally be in footnotes, but there are a few things that we have in parenthetical citations. Rule number 5. When citing parenthetically, the period or punctuation will go after the citation and not before it. If it is a quote, then it goes closing quotation mark, parenthetical citation, and then the period. Right? So you see that on the page. Right? Both citing Verbum Domini number 36, but notice how the period is never prior to the citation when you're citing parenthetically. Rule number 6. Magisterial texts, those cited parenthetically, are usually cited by the document's name and the paragraph number. You see an example of this on the page. That means it's not cited by the author's name, like Benedict XVI or Ratzinger. It's the document's name, Verbum Domini, and it's not a page number. Just like Scripture, all the different books or all the different Bibles in the world, they have so many different page numbers. And the reason we cite by chapter and verse is it allows us throughout the world, to have a common means of reference. That by saying John chapter 1, verse 3, regardless of a person's page numbers and how they differ from one place to the next, and one person here it has page number 472, and this person over here has page 322. They can both go to the exact same spot. Church documents have the same system, except it's not chapter and verse, it's usually by paragraph or section numbers. So if you see, for example, in the Catechism or in Verbum Domini, these numbers next to several of the paragraphs, those are the numbers that you're appealing to in your citation. So Verbum Domini here is not a page number, it's a number within the document itself. Rule 7. All right, so otherwise, when citing a book or an article or a story or a website, you will be citing these as a footnote. There are rules to follow for the first time a source is cited that include not only the author and title, but other publication info, as you see on the screen, on the slide. Unlike the bibliography page, which is last name first and then the first name, footnotes are generally not last name and then first name, but rather first name and then last name. You see that there, Joseph Ratzinger. After you've cited something for after you've cited something the first time, the subsequent citations are then a shorter note. It's not IBID. It would be something like what you see here on the slide in terms of the author's last name, a shortened title if that's possible. For example, if you had in the longer footnote, you might have a subtitle. You'd probably cut that for the shorter note and include the page number as that comes up. So you get a sense of this. There are different rules for the different kinds of things you're going to cite, but this is just getting you started with some basic principles. All right, let's look at Rule 8. The footnote appears in the sentence at the end. Unlike a parenthetical citation, it should be period, then the footnote superscript. If it is a quote, then it is the period, quotation mark, then the footnote superscript. So that's the number one there. See, now you may recall that in the parenthetical citation, it always was before the period. This is different. Now, I will admit, the one with the quote, it looks like there's a space between the quotation mark and the one. And just because I was doing this with slides, I don't think that the formatting was quite appropriate, but there is not a space between anything in the sentence and that footnote number one. All right, we are now on rule number 9. Church documents and book titles are put in italics. Poems, short stories, and articles are put in quotation marks instead of italics. Yeah. So you see there, Verbum Domini as a church document is in italics, and you see Introduction to Christianity by Joseph Ratzinger is in italics. If it was an article, let's say, that Ratzinger wrote for the Communio Journal, a wonderful journal, by the way, for anyone interested in theology, it would be the title of the article would be placed in quotation marks. Rule number 10, this is our last one. When sharing ideas from your sources in forum assignments, you still need to offer some kind of citation. There's a way to do footnotes in forum assignments, but I find them difficult to explain and get used to in the beginning. Now, each professor might have their own expectation of how you give credit to your sources for your ideas that you're pulling from. The way I do it in my classes is I say for the forum assignments alone, you may use parenthetical citations even for books, which would be author last name, as you see here, Ratzinger, comma, page number 26. And because of what the assignment is, it's usually pretty clear what book that would be referring to. This is important because we always need to give credit to where we're getting our information and our ideas from, what we're referring to, so that if someone else wants to look that up, they need to have the means of doing that. Again, with papers, with your written assignments, you'll utilize a footnote for Ratzinger 26 here. But this is just a suggestion of how it could work in the forum assignments. But again, defer to whatever your professor requires for indicating citations and forum assignments. Otherwise, I would say get used to these 10 rules. Be sure you have the Turabian manual in your collection of materials you use to work on your assignments in every single class. Be sure to have bookmarked on your computer or on your device this Chicago Manual Styles quick guide for citing. That's a good quick reference. And also be familiar with our university library's website and all the resources there for research, for citing, for writing, everything you can think of, and be acquainted with that. But again, these are just my 10 rules to get you started from the perspective of a professor. All right, I hope you're all doing well, and God be with you.